On this episode, Ed reflects on 22 years in Thailand and tells us what he's learned.
So if you're curious how a long-time expat justifies staying put in the land of smiles, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to start a Farang boy band. But 21 years later, I'm about to start a more age-appropriate Rolling Stones cover band instead.
Hey, Bangkok already has a Rolling Stones cover band. Come on, Greg.
Well, I mean, a rising tide lifts all stones.
And I am Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 22 years ago, never expecting Thailand to legalize cannabis. But now that they have, I am not going anywhere.
Cool, man.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get our ad-free regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the fact that Greg's son, and indeed any kid his age, has spent 1/3 of his life living with the pandemic, and how this affects his development in the little things like throwing a ball, for example. How and why some international schools in Thailand forbid students from speaking Thai, and whether that would work at my university, and some thoughts on my recent birthday.
Yay.
To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
Right, and as always, if you have a comment or a show idea or just want to say hi, head to bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail we will play on the show.
For sure.
Alrighty then. So on this episode, we want to pause to reflect upon a milestone, and that is Ed's 22nd year living in Thailand, which just passed, as did his birthday, as Ed mentioned. Happy birthday, man.
Thank you very much.
So it's like a double milestone, 22 years and your birthday. What are you now, 37, 38?
Yeah, approximately. It's roughly.
Roughly around there, yeah. Mine, give or plus or minus 25 years.
Shh.
So I think a lot of listeners of the show ended up staying in Thailand longer than they originally planned to, be it 1 year longer or 20 years longer. It's somewhat of a rite of passage to reflect on your time and what you've learned. So the cool thing is, and no matter how long you stay here over and above what you originally planned to stay here for, there always seemed to be something new to learn, think about, or complain about, and that's what we're going to do for this show. So Ed, this was your idea. You wanted to get some thoughts down on paper and talk about them, so I am going to sit back and let you tell all of us newbies what you, the experienced old man, have learned in your 2 decades plus in Thailand.
Old man in quotes as in I've been here a long time. That's what you mean, right?
Sure. Yeah, definitely not an old man as in bending over and walking with a cane.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to do this show for a couple different reasons. I mean, 22 is not a particularly special milestone. It's more like the weird mood I've been in the last couple months. You and I have talked about it. I can't go into details because it's about my personal life, but the last couple months I've been crazy in my personal life, and I have been thrown into a reflective mood. I haven't seriously thought about leaving Thailand, but I have thought about, like, what am I doing here? You know, one of those just reflective things, like you said, where I'm just like, I'm just looking back. I don't know why. I mean, of course, and also the age I'm turning is not a particular milestone. You know, it's not like 50 or 60. It's not some clear
like one of those odd numbers with a 3 on the end.
Just whatever, you know, it's just whatever it is. And but for some reason, I'm just going through a weird phase. I mean, it's funny. I remember when I was younger. I think I was 12 or 13, and I learned the concept of a midlife crisis. Maybe it was on a TV show.
Okay.
And I either asked my mom about it or somehow I learned about what it was. And I remember specifically thinking, I'm already in that. I remember thinking, and so that I've actually used that joke many times. When I've turned 23, I'm like, oh, I'm in a midlife crisis. I feel like I've been just the way I am. I feel like I've been in a midlife crisis my whole life. But I don't know. Maybe I'm going through a real one now. I'm not sure what's going on. I just had some bumps in my personal life. It's been a rough couple of months, and so I've been thinking about why have I stayed here? Like what? Clearly, I have. So I am biased. So any listener out there, you have to realize that both Greg and I we are people who have made our life here. We have made our way. We are committed to it. We obviously, over the years, have found a way to live a life that we like. So I'm not a neutral observer, like flying in a spaceship above planet Earth.
We have made our beds and we are sleeping in them.
That's right. But I still think I can try to be somewhat objective, or maybe explain to other people how I see the pros and cons of Thailand. Like what after 22 years matters to me. What's the down and dirty? What is the scorecard after 22 years? And I've got 5 things that I genuinely appreciate and 3 things that genuinely bother me.
Well, before we jump into them, let me clarify what you're going through then, because I think anyone who's been here for any amount of time, like I said, be it 1 year or even 6 months or 10 years or whatever, I think we go through these sort of highs and lows of we fall in and out of love with Thailand. And,
right.
It comes and goes. And like I've said on the show before, there are days when I want to get out. I can't handle it here anymore. I'm so stressed with this and I hate.
Yeah, sure.
And then a week later it was fine. And I'm like, I couldn't live anywhere else. So this sort of mood and state of mind you're in right now, have you gone through something like this before, like at your 10th year or your 15th year?
Yeah, of course. I've always had ups and downs in my personal life. And I have sometimes gone through phases where I've thought like, I got to get out of here. So that's not really what's happening here. It's more like I don't know. It sounds corny, but I feel like it's almost a kind of like a life assessment where I'm just thinking about like why am I here? So for me personally, it's a little bit of a bigger life evaluation thing that's going on.
Not why am I here? Like why do I exist? But why am I living in Thailand?
Yeah, let me just jump into it. Maybe it'd be more clear if I just jump into like these are the things that have been in my head. Like these are my down and dirty things that I have realized that make it worth staying. Okay, are you with it? Okay, number one is I keep learning over and over again that Thailand and Bangkok in particular is far deeper than it seems to be in terms of the variety of things to do here. Every couple years, I discover something new, a new group of people, a new subculture, a new part of the city to go out in. It's not just the fact that Bangkok is 10 to 12 million people. It's not just that. There is a lot of variety. There's 10 different cool neighborhoods, and there's many different subcultures. There's just a lot to do in Bangkok if you have the right attitude. Like we've talked before about expats getting in ruts and like, oh, there's nothing to do. Like the bottom line is, I think just as a matter of objective reality, Bangkok is just complex and varied and deep, and it's just after 20 years, there's still more stuff I want to do. Like I was just chatting with a buddy. Who was telling me about these cruises he goes on from Pattaya, like these day cruises, and they do cool stuff like, they feed you on the boat and like you can swim off the boat. And I've never done that in 22 years. I've never done like a cruise, and that's a whole, like the whole water sports thing and like yachting, and I've never done that. But that's just like one tiny example. Like my brush with the Muay Thai community in the last couple of months, I realized, oh, of course, there's a giant Muay Thai subculture that now I've encountered and I want to get more into. So that's number one, where I feel like after 22 years, I am not bored. If anything, I feel guilty about the stuff I haven't tried. I've got friends who are into this and friends who are into that. And I'm like, it's not Bangkok. It's me that keep, I just got to bust out of my shell and try this and try that. But Bangkok's got game. It's just got a ton of clubs and resources and meetup groups, and it's got a lot of stuff to do, man.
Bangkok got game. It's funny though, because you live in a place for a long time, and you sort of assume that the natural state of things will be like, as you spend more and more time in the place, you get closer and closer to having sort of figured it out and done it all.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Bangkok's sort of like flipped upside down, whereas the longer you're here, the more shit you find that you haven't known about and haven't tried.
Yeah, if you think you've done it all in Bangkok, you're wrong. That's number one. That's number one. Now, number two.
What's one of the shirts we used to sell on our website? If you're bored of Bangkok, the problem ain't Bangkok.
That's exactly right. That's it. Number two, this is related to number one, but I decided to break it off because I do think it's a little bit different. Number two is the fact that there actually is a huge community of expats with a lot of resources to make expat life better. Obviously, one of those resources is the Bangkok podcast, so we are a resource for expats. But man, there's a lot of resources. There's YouTube channels, there's meetup groups, there's Thai language resources. Like recently I've gotten into the Facebook group Farong's Can Learn Thai, I think what it's called. It's incredible, just incredible, like Thai language resources, super helpful people, like answering any Thai language question you want. There's just an excellent support community of expats here. And I know some people out there, there are expats. I've met several expats who they like to say this. They like to say, the worst thing about Thailand is the other expats. So there are expat haters out there. And I gotta say this, I don't think the problem is the other expats, because, okay, this is tricky because of course, just like anything else, you're going to meet some expats you don't like. There are jerks here. Like, there's no doubt. Some expats are jerks. Yes, of course. But I don't know, man. I mean, you and I have a great group of friends, even though now that you're a family man, you don't have as much time to go out. But I've never had a problem meeting interesting people here. And I think the expat community is cool and interesting and fascinating. It's filled with it's jerks and weirdos too, but I think that's going to be true anywhere. That's true back in my hometown of Cleveland. There's jerks and weirdos. There's jerks and weirdos back there too.
Yeah, I think, but living as an expat here for a long time, you've got to develop certain, I don't know, maybe social radar skills that you might not have had to rely on so much back home. Like,
right.
You've got to sort of harden yourselves to friendly people on the street because more often than not, they're scammers. Maybe here you've sort of got to be a bit more prepared to be a bit more harsh when it comes to selecting the people you hang out with.
That's right.
And if you do, then you can end up with some really great, awesome, lifelong friends like we have.
Right. But beyond that, there's also resources. Like there is like a legitimate expat support network. So you're far from the first person. You're the 100,000th person who've done what you're doing. And there's just pre-existing groups, no matter who you are. There's groups for Western women in Bangkok, to hang out with, because we know their lives aren't easy. But there's just there's a million different organizations like that. Whether it's Thai language, Thai culture, just sports things. Like there's even a Cleveland Browns backers club here. There's my university has a alumni organization here. The support network for expats is quite good, and it's up to you to take advantage of that. But it's there. Okay,
it's sort of like a microcosm of podcasts themselves. Whatever your thing is, there's a podcast for it.
That's right. And I think Bangkok's the same way. So that's number two.
Right.
Number three is this, and this is a bit of a counter argument because I think a lot of expats are friends of mine who have left Thailand. I've heard this complaint. Thailand never changes. Like, it's like problems are recurring and nothing ever gets better. Thailand is stuck. And I'm going to address that because that technically is one of my negatives, which I'm going to get to. But I'm going to make this third point. Things do change here. It's often not necessarily what you think is going to change, and it doesn't always change at the pace that you want it to change. But Bangkok and Thai people are deceptive. Like they never, to be honest, it's part of Thai culture. They never seem like they're getting shit done. Like they're so casual about everything that they never seem like they're hard at work at anything, but stuff gets done. I mean, to me, like the two things that immediately popped in my head are just the way they're expanding the SkyTrain and the MRT. It's insane. There's just new lines opening up left and right, and there's like 5 more under construction, and it's totally different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15. It's a totally different ballgame.
Remember that giant green space in the middle of Bangkok? That wasn't here 5 years ago.
You can get around Bangkok so much faster than before, and that's a big deal. That's first world shit, man. Bangkok's public transit destroys most American cities. Like it might even destroy every American city because a lot of mass transit or public transit in the U.S. is very old. So Bangkok just has a world class public transit system now, and it just keeps expanding, and it's going way outside Bangkok. And Bangkok
sure is better than the C train in Calgary with its ripped seats and cigarette burns on the plastic windows and junk and garbage at the stations.
But it's also stuff like cannabis legalization, which I have to mention. Like that's something that I would never have expected, and then boom. This is why Thailand is weird in a way. It's like Thailand's got its own pace. It's got a totally different culture. It's got a different political history, and just weird shit can happen. And so, bam, out of the blue, we have cannabis legalization, which might get rolled back. But the bottom line is, to me, this is just one of the pleasant kind of magical things about Bangkok is that even though it does seem like things never change, I admit, it does kind of seem that way. When you watch the news, you're like, another flood? It's like, Jesus, But the truth is...
Yeah, we make fun of that.
The truth is, some things do change.
I like it. That's good one, man. That's a nice, optimistic, evidence-based rant.
It's a fact.
I like it.
It is a fact. That is number 3. Yeah. Number 4, mentioned many times, but I got to say it. Thai people are just genuinely nice and pleasant, and the value of it, I think, gets undersold. In other words, people call Thailand the land of smiles, and they say Thai people are nice, but no one ever talks about why that matters. And I have learned over the years that it matters because it makes day-to-day activities almost frictionless. When was the last time you had like a confrontation with a Thai person, like an ugly interaction? It's extremely rare. I've had some ugly interactions with Thai people, but man, over 20 years, I feel like it's been 3 times where, I've had differences, like a kind of a heated interaction. Thai people are just nice, and just everyday interactions just tend to be kind of charming and smooth, and people smile at each other, and you go buy something on the street and you have a nice little pleasant interaction. It's just Thai people like it. I don't know why I'm stuck on this word, but I think of the word like frictionless. It's just daily life here. I mean, obviously you have things like traffic jams, but I mean, dealing with people in Thailand is smooth, man. It's just a smooth experience. There may be some downsides to the niceness, and I realize that the Thai smile is not always genuine. I get that. Just because Thai people are nice to foreigners, it doesn't necessarily mean they really like them or even want us here. But that doesn't matter. Like, as long as they're nice, they're actually nice, and my experience is pleasant, then like how deep the smile goes, it's not particularly relevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good point to think about. The last time I can remember getting into it with a Thai person was probably the only time was probably with like some scammy tuk-tuk drivers or someone that yelled at me, and but those are the jerks that exist in any strata of any country, of any city.
I just think there's far fewer jerks here among Thai people. There's far less confrontation because that is the culture. I mean, to be honest, I've had far more confrontations with expats here than I have with Thais. Far more.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, me too. I would push back though against what you said about how Thailand's like the quality of its people gets undersold. I think it's sold very, very well. I mean, the land of smiles is the whole identity almost of what Thailand is to a foreign audience. So I think that's like the bedrock cornerstone of how Thailand is sold to the world.
I guess what I meant is it's under-explained. In other words, it's people. I don't remember anyone ever telling me like why that matters. Like people just say, "Oh, the Thai smile, Thai people smile." But what I've learned over more than 20 years is that it just makes your day a lot more pleasant, and just not to have, from being back in the States and then remembering what it was like. I feel like back in the day in the U.S. when I was going out a lot, if I was going out, 3 or 4 nights a week, almost one time a week, I'd have a problem with somebody. Like if you go out a lot in the States, like, and you're in bars, so you're going to elbow someone's going to get pissed to you. Like, people are just more confrontational. I mean, that's the cliche, so you're going to, I'm not saying you're going to get into a fist fight. I'm just saying you're going to have some conflict. And, Bangkok is not conflict free. Like, you're going to argue, you're going to get into argue with a taxi driver who won't take you where you want to go. It can get ugly. But the bottom line is it's just few and far between, man. I like it. What can I say? It's like I've come to really appreciate just people who are being nice, and there's not unnecessary nonsense with Thai people. Like there's not a lot of ego things going on. That's just my take.
Speaking of the Thai smile, have you ever seen, do you remember that commercial that came out years ago? It was really funny. I'll put it in our show notes, but it was a woman and the voiceover was talking about the land of smiles. And it was this woman at a hotel, the staff lady, and she was whining and she was smiling very big. And then it cut back to a tourist couple, this old man and woman who were standing there smiling at her. And then this woman, it cut back and forth between them. And the Thai woman's smile kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the corners of her mouth
I think I saw that. I think I saw that. And it gets really creepy, right? Yeah.
Towards her ears. And then the old people start to look a little bit worried. And then you hear this like splat sound and the old people are splattered with blood.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't think I've seen that.
It's super dark and very typically weirdly Thai. So
oh, that's great. All right. Reason number 5. And again, with the caveat that I am biased, where else could I go? Or like, we've had the conversation trying to compare Thailand to Cambodia or Vietnam or Japan or China or the Philippines. And I think that a lot of people have different reasons why they live where they live. So there's people who are happy in Cambodia, happy in Vietnam, happy in Japan. But when I meet other expats from those countries in Bangkok, so I meet them all the time. So I meet people who live in all those countries. I meet them all the time. They basically never say something like, Taiwan is just way better than Bangkok. They never say that. They always say something like, well, I have a really good job in Vietnam, like the kind of programming I do, there's no one else who could do it there, so I make a ton of money. Or they say something very particular, like I've got a buddy who got married and has a son, and he wanted to get out of the chaos of Bangkok, and his wife is Japanese. They moved back to Japan, and he just says, like, my life is way more boring here, but I'm a dad. He's like, I want a boring life. I want a peace and stability, and I don't want to deal with like trash in the street, and I don't want like a military government. So he's just
fair enough.
So he's just at a point in his life where Japan is much better for him. So I'm not saying Bangkok is right for everyone all the time, but I rarely hear any kind of cogent argument why it's better to live in China than Thailand. Why? It's going to be specific. Like it might be specific to you, like your job, but there's no objective reason why China is better. I'm sorry, there's not. And, and again, maybe you can make some better arguments about Japan, but Japan is just way less friendly to foreigners than Thailand is. Like, go ahead, name the country. And I think you could make some good arguments for maybe places like Costa Rica or possibly some European countries. But man, I'm ready, man. Like, just let's go. If you want to have an argument about it, I don't see
throw down.
Yeah, I'm ready to throw down. If anyone tries to make an argument for any other Asian country, let's go, man. Like, I'll die on this. I'll die on this hill, man. Thailand is the best country for expats, possibly in the world, but for sure in Asia. So I'm ready to have that. So whatever, it's got problems, which I'm going to get to in a minute. I'm going to mention 3 problems. But man, I think every other country has bigger flaws.
Last time I was in Vietnam a few years ago, I had that thought walking down the street. I was just kind of sort of like trying to find something, and it was proving to be very difficult. And no one could speak any English. I was in Hanoi,
right?
And I just remember thinking like it would be really hard to live here as an expat.
Man, Vietnam, the Vietnamese people might be as nice or even nicer than Thai people, and I mean that most sincerely. But even if you're in Ho Chi Minh, there's 5% as much to do there than Bangkok. Like the 120.
I really love Vietnam, but it just seems like it would be a much more difficult nut to crack.
Dude, there's 1/20th as much to do. Literally 1/20th. Like the Philippines, there's some great arguments for the Philippines. Our buddy John loved the Philippines. There's great arguments for the Philippines, but there's some big counter arguments too, man. For foreigners there, like there's basically small little enclaves of foreigners, and foreigners can't really roam freely in the Philippines and be safe.
Oh, really?
It's got some serious downsides. Anyway, let me get to my persistent, niggling negatives that I have to be honest about. So
now we're all puffed up. Let's talk about the downside.
Yeah. So then the first thing I have to mention is the fact that there are just certain recurring problems that are just so annoying that no one seems to be even working on with some long-term plans. Like the number one thing is the flooding. It's just, we're in the midst of it right now, although it's not as bad as they predicted it's going to be. But every year, so now it's been 22 years I've been here, and it's just flood after flood after flood. And every year they're talking about this plan or that plan. They're going to dredge this canal. They're going to do this, and nothing ever changes. So this is the complaint. So now I'm making the complaint that people say about Thailand. Jesus Christ, it's like nothing ever changes. But so the three things for me are air pollution, even though it's just, so air pollution now, it just depends on which way the wind is blowing.
Right,
But
total luck of the draw.
But there's no actual solution. There's no, like, for some reason they can't figure out how to stop farmers from
Right,
burning.
there's no like systematic
Right.
strategy, multi-step plan for
That's right.
And then reducing it and then eliminating
the third thing is the freaking government, which of course we're not going to talk about in detail, but it's just extremely frustrating to see Thai people stuck in this like cycle where they can't get a truly democratic government. Is extremely frustrating. We're limited in how much we can talk about it. But I'm not going to fake it. I got to mention it. So if that's something that really bothers you, then this is not the place for you.
Yeah.
So
you have to be able to. Living here, you've got to be able to put up
Disengage.
with a certain amount of crap.
Yeah, you got to be able to
got to be able
disengage.
to just put stuff out of your mind and put it in a little drawer over here and realize that you're not going to be able to change it or
and as
alter it.
foreigners, Thai people don't want us to get involved in their politics, so that's fine. So it's easy. So I don't like it, but it's kind of officially not my business, even though I feel like it should be since I've been here so long. But just the way Thai culture is and even Thai laws are, Thai politics isn't our business, so we get it passed. So it's technically, officially not our problem. Even though I think it should be, but it's not.
Right. It's sort of like an unspoken deal that we make, right? Like you can't talk about it, but on the other hand, you don't have to worry about it. So
that's
just
right.
never mind.
That's exactly right. Number two, and we've said this before, but it must be said again, Thailand is not a legally and bureaucratically friendly place for expats. And we have to make this clear, even though Greg and I are huge promoters of Thailand, if you compare Thai rules for foreigners to many other countries, Thailand's laws are worse.
Yeah. They're more restrictive. They're harder to understand.
In terms of getting visas, work permits, border runs, how hard it is to become a citizen. I think in almost every category, Thailand is worse than many other countries. And now, not all. Japan is famously hard on foreigners. So there are certain countries that are worse. And the odd thing about Thailand is Thai people are very open to foreigners, at least with a smile on their face. Whether they really want us here or not is another issue. So Thai culture treats foreigners very nicely, as I mentioned before. But legally and bureaucratically, this place is bad. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about coming here. If bureaucracy drives you crazy and you want a fair deal as a foreigner paying taxes, then this place is not for you.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. I mean, things might be changing a little bit, but there haven't been any big changes. And legally and bureaucratically, this place sucks. Let's just say it. It just sucks. And then my third point is, and this is a little bit hard to say, but again, I'm trying to keep it real. I gotta say it. I think of this as the junior varsity problem. And I know this is going to sound harsh, but I got to keep it real. So like in the US, in high school, you have the varsity team and you have the junior varsity team, right? And the varsity team is...
I don't know what those mean.
Oh, varsity is like the top team. It's like the A team. And the junior varsity is the B team. And usually JV is the younger kids, like the 9th graders and 10th graders, whatever. And again, I know this is going to sound harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway. In terms of careers, in terms of culture and intellectual life, Thailand is not first world. So this is a B team situation. Like if you want to make the same money as you would in the West, you're not going to do it here, except in rare cases. So I know there are expats here on expat packages and things like that, but maybe, I don't know, 1 out of 20 expats here make what I would call Western money. So they do exist. You and I have some friends who've made a bundle of money here. But the bottom line is, this is just like another league. This is like a junior league. This is like junior varsity. And you, for the same work you're doing in the States, you're going to earn significantly less, although cost of living is lower. And then also, if you're a person who's really into art or culture, you're not going to find a high level of it here. Some of it's here, some of it. If you're into classical music, you can find classical music here. But, in Cleveland, Ohio, which is 1/15 the size of Bangkok, our classical music destroys Bangkok. Like our orchestra is world class, straight up world class. And we're 1/15 as big as Bangkok. So this is not a great place to be if you want the highest level, like intellectual life or cultural life. Like I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, but it's just the bottom line is the university system it's significantly far behind. Like my job is to keep up the academic standards, but I got to be honest. When you look at worldwide rankings of Thai universities, it's like the best university is something like 350th or something. That's the best one.
Believe me, I think about that a lot as a parent who's not planning on going anywhere.
The bottom line is this is not a super intellectual culture we're in. It's just not. And so you can find it here. And there's great Thai artists and there's great Thai intellectuals, but there's not many of them. There's not a lot.
Right.
So if your thing is art, culture, or intellectual life, I'm not going to say this place is a wasteland. That would be a little bit extreme, but
wasteland.
But you're much better. You're just much better, obviously, in Europe or America, or presumably, I guess a place like Tokyo or Beijing. That's going to have the art and culture and intellectual life you need. Thailand's not so good for that.
It always has struck me kind of weird because Thai people are so creative and they're so interested in like having a sort of a creative output, and the museums here that do exist are really cool. So it's always surprised me that sort of aspect of a local culture is not celebrated more, is not highlighted more, is not like there's no famous artists. There are notable artists,
right?
But they're not famous.
Like I said,
they're not
it definitely
household
exists.
names.
Like I'm not sure what the problem is. I'm not sure it actually is Thai culture. I'm not sure. I don't know what exactly the problem is. I mean, some of it is just lack of government support, and the communities are here. Like you said, there is an arts community. There obviously is an intellectual community. There are universities. There are academics. There are conferences. The bottom line is again, I gotta say it. It's the B team or the C team. Like this is just not. This is just not high level when it comes to that stuff. So you have to make your choices. So I've made the choice. Like I am a teacher. I'm not a scholar. That's the simple truth. Is so I love teaching. I live in an intellectual environment, but it's not highly competitive like with the rest of the world. Like it's not. It's just not, and I have to face it, and I've accepted it. But the bottom line is when I do my on balance analysis, even though I'm going through maybe a little bit of a midlife crisis, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. When I look at all these things, it's just those 5 things I really appreciate, and I've just adapted my life to it. And it's just I feel optimistic about my next 5 years because I just know there's something I'm going to discover. Like whether I continue down the Muay Thai path, like now I'm feeling very good about Bangkok, and I just feel like wow, there's so much undiscovered stuff here after 22 years, man.
That's a great, very optimistic outlook to have. Yeah,
I think it's subjective. Like, I mean, it's where I'm at right now, but I don't think I'm making stuff up, or I don't think I'm fooling myself. I think it's objectively true, man. That's why I'm putting it out there for the world to hear, and I'm ready to hear counter arguments. And I know there's, my point about living elsewhere is there's always individual reasons to stay somewhere else. Oh, my girlfriend is Japanese, something like that. Of course, but I want arguments about the place, objective facts about why Malaysia is better than Thailand. That's what I want to hear, And I think there are some, like my buddy who's in Japan, he just loves that it's just clean and organized and professional and stable, and it's not chaotic, and he just loves that. So right. I think that's a valid point. Like not everyone falls in love with the, the organic, chaotic nature of Bangkok. Me and you have fallen in love with it.
Yeah, but we also have lots of friends who have come here and gone like, no.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, they'd rather be in Singapore or Japan, where shit is spotless and everything runs on time, and that's not Bangkok.
The flip side of the coin is we have friends too who'd rather be in Phnom Penh. They look at Bangkok like, it's a bit too organized, a bit too.
That's right.
Phnom Penh's I got that crazy sort of unpredictability I like.
Right. Well, to each his own, but I'm still going to claim Bangkok is the best place for expats, maybe in the world, but for sure in Asia.
Yeah, I read something a long, long time ago, and I've never forgotten. It said, Bangkok, I love it, and I hate it, and I would never live anywhere else.
I'm with you, man. At least for now. I'm with you.
Good list, man. You put some good thought into that. I agree with every point you have.
Cool.
Next one. All right, so let's do one of the new segments we want to try in this new season, and something we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks 2 contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. And this week it is my turn to ask you, Ed.
All right, hit me, man.
All right. This is a bit of a weird one. It's a bit of a hypothetical, but I'm going to ask you to imagine that you are a criminal. You're a bad Ed.
I can do that. I
You
can do
got a
that pretty
goatee.
easily.
You
Sure.
got a goatee and you're evil Ed.
Okay.
So you do something bad and you get caught, and you are sentenced to 1 year of confinement. Would you rather that 1 year be in a like minimum security prison in the States, or you would have to make merit for 1 year as a monk in a temple in Thailand?
Oh, this is super easy. Of course, I would do the monk thing.
Really?
I mean, I've thought about just becoming a monk straight up. Period. Anyway, I think it would be a fascinating thing. For me, I feel like I'm a little bit too old for it. I think if I would have come to Bangkok earlier in my life, and if I knew I was going to be here, like if I decided, hey, I'm going to be here like at least 10 years, I could totally see becoming a monk. For one thing, because I know you don't have to commit to it for a year. A lot of people leave the monkhood after a few months. So
Fail.
it's whatever. But it's actually something that I even have thought about doing, period, just by choice. So for me, I would much prefer the monkhood, even though, once I did it, I might find out I don't like this at all. So it's quite possible. It's such a, we've learned a lot about it from Prop Pandit. So I'm not suggesting I necessarily would like it as a monk. I'm not suggesting that. But to me, I'm curious enough that I would go monkhood for sure.
Well, when I thought of it, it seemed like an obvious choice for me too. But then I thought about it. I mean, you're in a minimum security prison in Western countries, especially in European countries. You get TV.
Oh, for sure. Video games.
You get a video games. You get a community. Maybe not the best community in the world, but you have friends. You can socialize. You can
Agreed.
exercise.
Yeah.
Whereas you're in a Thai temple, you can only eat before noon.
Yeah. No
You have to
women.
study all
No women.
day.
Obviously, that would be a struggle.
Exactly. No women. No social life.
Yeah. Did you see the recent story about the scandal over monks exercising?
I saw that some ripped monks or something.
Yeah, I think we asked Prop Pandit, and he said there actually is no rule against that. But I guess Thai people don't like it; they don't think it looks proper. But I think Prop Pandit told us that there's no rule that says they can't exercise.
Wow.
But anyway, I definitely would go monk. So for me, this was a pretty easy one. I'm just curious enough, and if I was in the right temple, not every temple emphasizes meditation, but some of them do. So I would go into a jungle temple that emphasizes meditation and try the whole ascetic life. I may not survive. I'm not predicting that I would survive. Like the getting up early in the morning and the alms thing, that would be rough, man.
That'd be rough.
Because you're supposed to eat whatever people put in your bowl. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, here's some boiled fish for you. Oh, great.
Yeah,
14th
fish
day
head
in a row for that.
Thank you.
But you're in prison. You can meditate there, and then you can have a nice steak for lunch and watch TV in the afternoon.
True that. I think you're right. I think like a minimum security prison doesn't scare me too much. I mean, I've actually had a friend go to a minimum security prison in Sweden, and it was not that hard. He had access to video games and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I think a minimum security prison, I'd be more worried about the damage to my reputation and my resume.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point too. Whereas a temple, you come out and people are like, "Ooh, there's an extra check mark."
Right. Now a real prison, that's something I definitely would not want to go to. But a minimum security, I'm with you on that. I don't think that would be that difficult. It'd be more like a reputational thing. But yeah, I would go monkhood for sure. No problem.
I probably would too, but I'm with you. I might after a while go, man, this sucks.
Yeah, I'm not sure I
can't
can do
this.
it. Yeah.
Whereas, although if you're in prison, you don't have that option. Hey, not having a good time here. Can I go home?
Yeah, I gotta go. All right, man. That was fun. Okay, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website and connect with us online or Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. And you can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show, or you can even reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there, and we will see you back here next week.
Absolutely.
When you talk to someone online, do you put the window right below your webcam?
It depends. I have done that with like to try to equal so your eye looks like it's going to the right
Yeah,
place.
roughly, like you're looking at them. Yeah.
I mean, I try to do that with my students when I taught. Yeah, but I mean, with you, I usually don't pay attention to that. But yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. So I think I read that it's either Microsoft or Apple. They have creepy software that changes where your eyes looking, like in real time. Like there is
Really?
Is it might be Apple. If it was Apple, you would probably know about it. Someone has like software to correct that, so you're always looking into the camera like a freak.